Thinking about my friends, Indie Coffee Coalition, just thinking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars we've saved coffee shop owners just like you, who are not franchisees, who are looking for deals on their fat mix and their energy drinks. Why should the franchises get all the deals, right? Indie Coffee Coalition was built with the idea of saving you, the little guy, tons of cash. So if you're a coffee shop owner, you have 1 to 3 coffee shops, and you're serving blended drinks or energy drinks, we can substantially save you money and keep more money in your pocket. Set up a call. I'd love to talk with you. Indie Coffee Coalition, keeping money in your pocket.
In business, you can't just say, well, I can get that to you when I build a perfect system and it's going to take like 6 months or a year. It's like, no, you're gone. You're going to be out of business or out of a job. So you figure out a way with some very manual tools that still work, but then you also work back to go build the system the way that you want to build it.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are 3 coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
So welcome to Coffee Experts Club. Pretty excited to be here with you all with the amazing Derek Tonn. Man, so great to have you here. Derek, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm honored.
Man, it's pretty cool when you get the boys back together. You know, I mean, I feel like we've done an iteration of this once where we all got to work together and got to work in a pretty close proximity, and then kind of all have gone a little bit different ways, but it's nice just to have us all back in the same room. So the 3 questions we ask everybody is, first of all, who are you and who do you work for and what do you do it for? And then what's your best story, something you learned or you taught? And then what's your biggest hurdle, either that you're dealing with now or dealing with in the past? And more than anything, the whole point of Coffee Experts and interviewing, you're a high-level CEO. You're a guy that's been doing this for some time. You're a guy that has a lot of insights that you bring. Analytics have always been your jam. That was something that back in the heyday of Roasters, when you came on, we were not that strong in. And I feel like you brought a lot to the table with that. But I would love just to hear our 3 questions, and you can take them whatever order you want.
Yeah. So I actually did a little preparation. So wrote out some answers here. So I'll talk about my current role. So my official title is Vice President of Analytics at BlackRock Coffee Bar. Been with them almost a couple of years now. So really just transitioned my role as CEO of Roasters, been through the acquisition, stayed on board, kind of got the lay of the land, saw that this was a skill set that I had, and there was a pretty big gap in the company as far as analytics, reporting, insights, and just really dove into it. And they, guys there just kind of let me do my thing, and happy with what I've been doing so far. But basically what I do and now the group under me, what we do is we monitor, predict company performance. So BlackRock, we're up to, I think, about 120 locations now, operating in 7 different states. And
Wow.
so just kind of like a different level, even though in the grand scheme, not a huge company, but now we're at scale. We're operating in a lot of different markets, a lot of teams that are all trying to coordinate. So data and analytics is becoming more and more important. And if you just think of the coffee business in general, just the transactional data coming in every day, every week, every month, I mean, it's huge. It's enormous. Really being able to consume that data, analyze it, and then translate it, present it in a form to our teams to where they can take action on it. And so we track things like sales, product mix, our labor, cost of goods, customer service scores, profitability, turnover percents, or card times, competitor pricing. How do we stack up compared to Dutch Brothers and Starbucks in every market? And then where do we want to position ourselves? That way we can, obviously at the end of the day, stay in business and be profitable. And so really my group is kind of the gatekeeper for all of that data, all the information in the company. So coming, plugging into all those sources and presenting it to where it's understandable and actionable at a store level. So in a nutshell, that's what I've been doing.
I know this. When I first met you, I was like, man, this guy, and I started seeing the way you present data, especially, I was super impressed. Like that was kind of Ben and my jam, was running operations, and we had data that we pulled together that made best sense to us. But then I think when you came on the field, and you obviously had done it for other people and done it other places, and you brought some of the magic that you knew and were able to bring it into the established system that Ben and I were working from. I felt like that's what really impressed me the most, is you being able to take something that's super complex and break it down to something that's simple. Do you feel like that's a lot of what you do now, is like a lot of the complexity and then just shake it down to like dashboards and things that are much easier to consume, so you can tell the story that the data is like data a lot of times is really overwhelming for most visionaries, entrepreneurial people. Like they're like, oh, like I love that you have all that even looking at that spreadsheet gives me a headache. Can you just make it simple? Can you just give me like 5 big boxes that are colored a certain color and tell me what the numbers are? Like, do you feel like a lot of what you do is taking the complex and making it simple and then digestible from some sort of dashboard?
Absolutely. It's funny because when we rolled out, we called them the KPIs, and at roasters, and we were tracking very high level, very basic things for the 14 locations we had. We were looking at sales trends, labor per cost of goods, maybe a couple other things, but car time, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it was just all in a dashboard form where it was like red is bad, green is good. Here's your goal. But it was all on one page. And I think that's really important. So most of the things will only be on one page, because if it gets beyond that, just, the human mind can only take in so much. And if it's too much at once, you can't take in anything. So you've got to be really, really specific with what you're trying to communicate. So for some reason, it's a skill I have. And I remember when the BlackRock guys came on and they were looking over things, I was kind of showing them how we were running. They were like, wow, we don't even have that. And they were like, even if we just have that one report, that KPI dashboard, essentially that's what we've been running on right now the last, 9 months operationally, just weekly KPIs rolling out there in very much the same format that we were doing at Roasters. So it's been really cool to see where you can just take a simple idea like that at a smaller scale and apply it to a bigger company and can have a huge impact.
You'd be surprised. Like, I feel like of all the consulting we do, and these guys that are doing millions and millions and billions of dollars in sales, and they're, I mean, so visionary and taking such large pieces of territory for their kingdom. You know what I'm saying? But it's like when you get into actual actionable data that they're operating from, it's really surprising how few of them have it shaken down as clear as what you just said. And I know that's some of the magic that we get to come alongside of people and bring too, is, hey, let's just break it down to simple numbers. And even like, I know some of the teams that we're rolling L10s out with right now for EOS, like we did at Roasters when we came in as Collab team there, was, hey, listen, some people are reluctant to put numbers on a board. And it's like, no, listen, if you can't show it in numbers, it's really hard to prove it exists. Like narrative based explanations only go so far, especially when you're talking about dollars and cents. Like you need to show like the value of this and why what you do is valuable. And that is told by the story of numbers. So let's throw numbers up on the board. Like, let's see if they stick. Like they don't have to be the best ones out of the gates, but at least start tracking something. And then that way, a lot of times what we found is when you start tracking something, you'd start identifying, is this the best number, or are there numbers that could be better that we track? Would you agree with that? Have you found some of that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, until you really get the numbers up there and see the history around those and provide context, and even how different markets or locations compare to each other, you can just put out one location and you're like, okay, but then you start adding all 100 and you're like, okay, well, these locations are performing down here in a certain metric, say sales or labor per, and then we have 10 up here. Why is that? And then you
That's
start
right.
really digging in and saying, oh, okay, well, Starbucks opened next door, so sales went down, or, oh, it's a new manager, so they're still figuring out the schedule, or there's always a story to, and that's been one thing really fascinating is you see the number and you kind of track them. And then when there's a change, you can call up the, area manager or regional manager. Oh yeah, well, we had to shut down because our electricity went out or something like that, or just something crazy happened that in the day to day of a store doesn't seem that crazy. But when you see it, in a spreadsheet of the numbers, you don't have an appreciation for it until you kind of know the story behind it. So
Super good.
I'm curious if you had all the pipelines for that data. Did you have to build that, Derek? Was that kind of a place for you to just sort of collect, or was it a big task on trying to get all 120 stores to be able to report data into a central location?
yeah, so you actually jumped right into my biggest hurdle
Way
question.
to steal his thunder. Way to steal his thunder, man.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect segue. No, I'll jump right over to that. So yeah, you're spot on, Ben. I know you understand numbers, as well as anybody. Um, and then all the systems that you have to pull numbers from and the way those are set up. So yeah, one of the biggest hurdle that I'm currently facing is how to deliver that actual information with these imperfect systems and processes. So as the company's grown, we've plugged and bolted things on. These systems don't talk to each other. So, we're still using Touchpoint for a point of sale, and we use a different platform for our third party sales. Well, third party sales don't go into Touchpoint. So if you want to get your full revenue picture, you need to pull data from both, but you got to pull them from different ways and it's not automated. And oh, by the way, if you want to pull your labor data, you can't just go ask payroll for it because that data is like 2-3 weeks old. But, that's ancient history. So you got to go to the actual scheduling system to get that data. And oh, you want your car time data? Well, you got to go to this other system. You want, you name it. There's probably 8 to 10 different systems we got to pull data from. Location titles are different in every single system. So there's a ton of mapping that you have to do to get that final report out. And so right now it's like we've built up an airplane and we're flying, but then we're still building the airplane as we're flying. So it's definitely imperfect. But we found some workarounds to be able to at least extract the data manually. And then at the same time, we're launching these projects to go back, actually, build a legitimate data warehouse where we have API integrations, pulling that data automatically, doing all the transformations that you need to get it in that final format. So it's like you're having to work from both ends, because in business, you can't just say, well, I can get that to you when I build a perfect system and it's going to take like 6 months or a year. It's like, no, you're gone. You're going to be out of business or out of a job or whatever. So you figure out a way with some very manual tools that still work, but then you also work back to go build the system the way that you want to build it. And so looking at point of sale providers and how can these different, systems talk to each other, that's yeah, a huge challenge. So glad you asked that question.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you say 120 stores, I immediately go, oh man, collecting sales numbers alone has got to be like herding cats to get that all into one spot and easily and quickly. Man, that sounds like a project.
No, but I think, realistically too, I think that it's amazing how much crossover, because Ben and I spend a lot of time too in the online space. Collab team is split pretty down the middle on coffee and then online entrepreneurs. And so a lot of what you were just talking about there, like, I feel like we deal with that all the time in the online entrepreneur world, where it's like, they've got all these different platforms that are doing all these different things, but then we're the ones coming in trying to bring order to the chaos. So like you were saying, how do you translate these all into same language so it all speaks the same thing, so it's not manually aggregated for hours by somebody? And even if you can, outsource that, we've got some great partners out there that do VA outsourcing, like in the Philippines and places where even if you can bang that dollar down, then you've got to really work through, but how clean is this data? Like, how accurate, how much human error is in this data? But I do think that the beauty of like some sort of dashboard or scorecard of what you were talking about earlier is that shift of week over week. I think that's one of the biggest magics of creating some kind of scorecard that's tracking week over week, is when you start seeing the variation. And the question is, okay, is the data clean? Okay, if the data's clean, then where's the pain point? And then identifying that down. But yeah, it's crazy to think all the things that go into it.
Yeah, really, when I came on and was like kind of getting the lay of the land and where I would plug finance and accounting, we're putting out a lot of our reports, but that's 4-6 weeks in the past. And so we found ourselves in, around this time last year where, labor was spiking up and people are like, why? We don't know why. Well, we're looking at this accounting data. You're only getting it every 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
It doesn't tell you the full story. So once we got into this weekly mode of tracking just labor hours, labor percent compared to sales, so like we saw a huge impact where just reporting on something and getting it out there, it just makes people aware of like, oh, wow, there are labor targets here, or just the sense of not wanting to be behind in the pack, And so there's definitely like an internal competition that gets sparked when you start reporting and stuff like that. But I want to move to best story. I want to tie this back to roasters because that's kind of how, at least this group here, our stories kind of started. But just one of the best stories, or something I really learned a lot about, was just that whole story of coming on to Roasters, it was like June 2020, somewhere in there. And it was, I'm leaving this old career that I had for, 15 years, ready to kind of jump into, you know, fast paced business, really exciting. Had a lot of plans around doing something awesome with Roasters, building that brand, working with you guys. So really a lot of excitement around that. And then within a very short amount of time, it's all like out the window and you're like, whoa, within a few months, you go from the mode of like, okay, build this, focus on it, dial it in to, okay, now transition, sell. And so big lessons there was just one, things can change so fast in life and in business. And you can make the best plans or have this idea of where things are going to go. And then boom, it just shifts. So one, just as far as lessons learned, just, staying humble, understanding that, you know, other parties and people involved have their, lives, right? And their own plans. And you're just a part of that. And so no matter what the plan was last week, that's not necessarily what the plan is this week. And then just being adaptable to that. Because honestly, where I'm at now with BlackRock and the different people I've met and networked with and opportunities that have opened up, I would have never been in this spot had I not kind of gone through that and taken that initial leap. So even though it didn't work out the way I thought it would initially, it all still worked out. And, just huge lesson for me and a cool story about, kind of what could have been, but also what did happen. And it was good either way. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that. And you guys were a big part of that and, what that period represented. And then obviously you guys, transitioned from kind of working on that too. And now are doing your own awesome things. And I think this podcast is part of that, right?
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Thought it was going one way. I'm like, holy crap, where are we going now? But ended out like I feel like on top because of it. Even the position that I'm at now with the Collab team, none of this would have come to fruition if it wasn't for the years past of Collab team coming in and sort of helping out operationally with Roasters. So it is funny to look back. You go through those tumultuous times of like uncertainty. You're like, wait a minute, I was expecting this, and this is totally not what I was expecting. And all of a sudden, a year or two later, you look back and you go, well, it actually worked out pretty well.
I found too, like with those turbulent times, I feel like that's what forges you too, like, and so with Collab team now, we're trying just to take on elite clients where it's like a higher retainer, committed amount of time and energy that we can really, we're only looking to take on probably 10 per season at a time of really where we can invest deeply into these companies, but we'll take them through the gap analyzer first. We're take like the inventory of everybody on the team, and how are people using their time and where's that time going to what platforms they're using. And usually that gives us, as we interview folks, it gives us some time in the rungs with the folks, like getting to know them, talking with them, meeting with them, hearing what they say about their visionary, hear what the visionary says about them. And usually after that stretch of time, I'm at a place of, do we even want to pick these people up as like our elite clients? Is this even somebody we want to work with? And so I think a lot of what you guys are both talking about there is, and Derek, I was so like impressed with you and proud of you all at the same time of taking that big leap of something that was so known and so established that you were doing before, and that you could have had a career and you could have like retired from doing that, but you took this brave step into doing something new with the knowledge that you had gained here and pressed into that. And then we got forged in this time together and going through pretty turbulent, bumpy like era of all of us traveling together. But I felt like it's the people that you travel with that you're like, no, we can take this. Sometimes Ben and I'll be on teams and I'm like, I don't know if this one's going to work because the team, and I'm like, the people here are not happy, but I think that some of the magic of our era there at the tail end of Roasters and christening in, the exit or the acquisition, I think was, it was turbulent. Yeah, there were some things that was like not what we had expected, but at the same time, it brought us all together. And that's something I loved working with you in that season, Derek. I loved us doing that first quarterly planning that we are, the first quarterly planning for the next year and some of the things we dreamed of. And I think it burst into some things. And I think too, it made you even better than you were when you got there, because you had to take all that stuff that you had learned and you translate it into actionable data that you're going to move from now. And I think that was a powerful season. And I'm excited to see, I feel like you've exalted up to this really cool thing that you're doing, and you're helping such a bigger, before we were talking about 14, 15, 16 stores with a roaster, now we're talking about 120 and such a bigger enterprise level. And so kudos to you for that, man.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride for sure. In a lot of ways, I kind of ended up in a similar position that I was before, but just some differences. But it's kind of like life kind of pulled me back and said, actually, you're really good at this, so you need to do this a little longer. But so it's different trying to, you know, run a company and have your hand in all these little things versus just being expert and focus on one thing. So it was definitely a cool experience, and definitely appreciate you two and kind of your how you helped me out in that period, and we kind of helped each other
Yeah.
transition off into the next phases, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that I definitely appreciate your friendship all the way through this whole thing. And I definitely count you as a good friend and appreciate all that you've spoken in and helped us with and have been, grateful to be able to provide things to you guys as we're able to as well.
Absolutely.
Well, final 2 minutes. And I mean, the other thing is I feel like sometimes you undersell yourself because it's not like this is the only thing you do. I mean, you've got your hands in all kinds of like business stuff that you like do ancillary as well. So I think I'm impressed that you're not only doing this, but also have all of your own things that you do on the side. I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of the best of both worlds where I was kind of just this corporate guy before, wanted to get more into, business, what entrepreneurship, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really call this entrepreneurship necessarily, kind of the middle ground.
Yeah.
And helping run a bigger company on value, but like you said, dabbling in some other areas that all kind of play off each other and interconnect. And that definitely a lot more exciting life than I was living before. And again, it wasn't exactly the vision I had, but it definitely, I'm in a better place, a lot happier, and just
Exciting. Well, we're grateful for you spending some time with us today. All righty, guys. Well, I think we're at the end of our time. Derek, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for being willing to talk and hang out a little bit. And we'd love to have you back on maybe a future show and just keep having conversations with you, man. Always so good to talk with you.
absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for thinking of me, and always great talking to you guys, and wish you guys the best.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.
Thinking about my friends, Indie Coffee Coalition, just thinking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars we've saved coffee shop owners just like you, who are not franchisees, who are looking for deals on their fat mix and their energy drinks. Why should the franchises get all the deals, right? Indie Coffee Coalition was built with the idea of saving you, the little guy, tons of cash. So if you're a coffee shop owner, you have 1 to 3 coffee shops, and you're serving blended drinks or energy drinks, we can substantially save you money and keep more money in your pocket. Set up a call. I'd love to talk with you. Indie Coffee Coalition, keeping money in your pocket.